Hey, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing on our projects, and this one was sent in from Dick in Philadelphia. Dick has sent us some beautiful reels in the past, some more collectible ones. He thought I would have fun tuning this one up because it's a little bit different. This is the Penn International 975. It's a lever drag. So most of these that you see are not the lever drag. And what's interesting with this lever drag is it actually has a level wind feature on it. And that's a little bit unusual for the lever drag reels. Usually lever drag reels are meant for a little bit of a heavier fighting fish, and that kind of goes against the level wind feature. But I told Dick we'll work on it. We'll do a video. We'll show everybody how this thing comes together, and we'll get it back out there with him fishing again. So let me start by taking off the exterior pieces, and as I do, I want to make a quick thank you to all of the first responders and essential personnel that are involved in keeping us safe during the pandemic. Yeah, it's starting to wane a little bit, but let's not forget what they're doing out here, keeping us safe and keeping us out of harm's way. It truly is an amazing job that they're doing, and probably the reason why the progress that we're making in this fight against COVID is so significant, because we are listening to what they say and doing what they're asking us to do, and in the end, it's all paying off. All right, we're going to take off the nut cap, then we're going to take off the handle nut. That comes off traditionally. They're going into a parch tray. It's nothing more than the bottom of a jug, and that was a easy part of this one. Now, when I do lever drag reels, there's two things I like to do. I like to start with it in free spool, like that. That usually releases the tension on a spring. And I also like to go get the schematic of the reel. Now, the schematic of the reel is available if it's a Penn reel. It's available at mysticparts.com. Go ahead and grab that so that you have a pictorial of how this reel comes together, just in case you stumble along the way. And we've kind of all been in that place before. And the other thing that I recommend is taking pictures. Now, I'm taking pictures here on the video, and I also happen to know a little bit about this reel. But taking pictures will help you get unstuck in the event that something goes awry. So you can find the orientations, you can see the sequence that you took the pieces and parts off in, and it'll, at the end of the day, it'll make it a whole lot easier for you if you get in trouble. Okay, so we've got a couple of things going on here. And I'm removing the exterior to the reel at this point. I'm going to take these off. And I'm unsure right now if I need to take that middle piece off here. There's one more screw in here, and I suspect that I have to do that. Okay, so this piece should be coming off as well. Let's go see if the case loosens up with this screw. That's a mini screw. You need a mini screwdriver for that. It's always good to keep all of your tools on hand here, just in case. Yep. All right. So we just pulled all of that out. The back end is a little dirty, so we'll show you how to go ahead and take that back off to clean. So is this side. There's a lot of sand in the lake in there, which kind of suggests that there's probably a lot of sand in this side as well. So we've got to detach the spool now, because you can see we got all kinds of dirt in that in there. To do that, we want to remove this cap on the preset knob. And then there's a screw underneath here we should be able to unscrew. There we go. And these are going into the parts tray, and I'm trying to keep these in a particular order here. Then you can unscrew your knob once that screw is out. And then we should be able to remove this plate, and then we can remove our little set here. You have to take that little screw out because you need to back it off. There you go. Get the knob off, the little tensioner off. And now we can remove the screw and the assembly. And we've got a little bit of cleaning up to do here. It's a pretty dirty reel. It's unlike what Dick generally sends me. You can see all the sand here that is accumulated. Sand and dried grease. I don't like that on my bench, so generally what I'll do before I try and clean any of that stuff up is I'll give it a good soaking, and I'll keep a paper towel under it. That way, as I go to remove that dirt and debris, it doesn't settle on my desk for the next reel. Okay, that starts to clean things up a little bit. And then we can come across the back now. You'll notice there are no screws on the front here to take care of that. They're all in the back. And I'm going to go with a different set of mini screwdrivers to get this out of the way now. Put that where that belongs. I just need a little bit more leverage for that, so I have a couple of different mini screwdrivers to take care of that. There's a case that's holding all of this on here. My hands are getting in the way, I apologize. There's 4 small screws. You want to be careful with these, you don't want to lose these. And generally you can feel when they disconnect. So if you like this kind of exercise here, if you like seeing fishing reels repaired, taken apart, cleaned and serviced and the like, then I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel. That's the best way to learn about reel repair and see which ones you like and don't like. And if that's the case, the channel is for you. If you subscribe, please hit the notification button, because that way you'll see which ones I'm posting. And you can make a determination as to whether that's one that you want to watch or not. And if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, if you leave that question in the comments section, then I will try and respond to you, answer your question for you, and help you along with your project. Now this should come out. I'm thinking one more thing. This is all going to tilt, so I'm thinking I have to remove the C-clip here. I'm going to get rid of that small screw right away, because those small screws tend to get lost on the desk. Here's that C-clip. And now I'm thinking that this whole piece will lift up and out now. There we go. So that's kind of how you work your way around this piece. And now you can actually remove this piece as well. Put that in the container. We're going to turn this over and just make sure that we don't have dirt and junk in here. And this is our main gears, what's driving the whole thing. I want to take that out because we want to continue with the cleaning of that case. When you see sand and junk and debris, that's detrimental to reel performance, and in some cases very injurious. So if you can, just make sure that you clean it all up so that it doesn't work its way into the anti-reverse clutch, and it doesn't work its way into the general workings of the reel itself. I use a combination of a penetrating oil as a general degreaser, and I use a cotton swabs and paper towels and the like to make sure that we get it nice and clean, like we're doing here. I'm just going to test that bearing, make sure that it's running fine, and it is. And then I'm just going to give that a healthy drink of oil. Now you don't oil this anti-reverse clutch. The anti-reverse clutch is a friction-driven piece, and you don't want the oil and grease causing too much slip. Okay, so we're going to swap this out. Now, right now, Chris will tell me I only got half my use out of the towel, but that has sand and stuff on it, so I want to get that off the bench. Just do a little bit of cleanup here for a moment. Now we're going to clean this main gear. A little ferrule that goes on here. We want to make sure that we get all the oils and greases off of the main shaft. Nice and clean. You want to check here now all the teeth. Now if you see any debris in there at all, go with a hard brush. In this case it's one of these dollar store kind of hard brushes. You could use a toothbrush. Nothing fancy needs to be done there, but you do need to make sure that it's nice and clean, that there's no tracks. While you're doing that, check the teeth. You want to make sure that all of the teeth are uniform, that they're not chipped or cracked in any regard. This one's in good condition. And then we want to just clean that plate up as well. Okay, that's your main gear. That's in good condition. You can go ahead and put that back into the cavity to just keep it clean. One last piece, you just want to clean out that ferrule, just so that it's riding properly. Get the grease brush. You want to lube that main gear before it goes back in, and then you want to set that aside out of the way so that we can move on to the lever drag portion of this reel. So there's a couple of things going on if you remember here. That's why pictures are good. If you don't remember, you go back and you look at your pictures. So we service the main gear. This is going to go back into that anti-reverse cavity here. It's going to sit in there like that. Then we're going to go grab our little cover. It's got 3 of the 4 screws in it. And we're going to grab our release. And then I just want to make sure that I've got the release right. There's a cavity here. The release goes up like that. And that release controls the second or tight line wind on it. Okay, now we know the one that belongs there has got the screw out of it, so we just work this around. Sometimes easier said than done. There we go. And then we have that little C-clip. So let's get that back on. I'm going to hold that C-clip. That C-clip can fly when you go to put pressure on it, so hold it so that it doesn't wind up someplace that you need to go looking for it. And generally with a screwdriver you can go ahead and put that in so that it holds tight. I think we got it there. Yep, we got it. So that's your C-clip. And then we had the one screw out of the 3 that we needed to remove because of the override button there. So the first thing I'm going to do is tighten down the other ones so that we have that aligned well. Another thing you'll notice here is that the opening here is for the drive gear coming off of the spool. So if you don't have an opening there, you've got this somehow installed upside down or backwards. And I'm going to grab the one more from my parts tray. You're probably looking at my elbow now. That's okay. Let's go bring the parts tray into focus here. This is where a parts tray works particularly well because you know where to look for your pieces and parts, especially the small ones. So this reel's got a good reputation. It's a little bit rarer than the average 975 because the average 975 doesn't have the lever drag feature. And as I said, it's kind of an odd duck, if you will, in that the lever wind guide for a lever drag is somewhat unusual. Okay, we've got the back here. There's a little spacer that belongs there and a little piece. We're just going to leave that off for now. We're going to go ahead and pay attention to the spool, which has the drag washer inside. We want to make sure all of that stuff gets worked and gets lubricated. So the first thing we want to do is remove this black collar. Typically that is serrated. It is, so that means you can usually hand tighten, and it usually goes in an opposite direction of what you would expect to remove. So it should remove, there you go, should remove in a clockwise direction. Once that cap comes off, you have your pressure plate. You want to make sure that's clean. There's a little bit of salt and the like, burring. And now you can see probably what some of the problem was. There's rust on this shaft, and probably that's caused the degradation in the performance of this reel. I'm just going to leave those here. There's another spring underneath it. Some folks like to just lay out the parts in the way that that they came off. That's okay. Whatever works for you. There is a snap ring in here, so I'm going to grab a snap ring pliers. It's a compression. Again, be careful with these things. They tend to fly as well. I'm going to take that off. That should enable us to remove the shaft. There's one more bearing under here which we can spend some time getting out by taking all of this off. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stick my long-necked Real X oil container in there. I'm going to make sure that we get the rust off of this. And we should be able to. It should be a stainless shaft there. I'm just going to check for scarring while I'm at it. These are tension washers for the lever drag feature. The way that they're set up, you can see a bigger space in the middle. That gives you a certain level of flexibility in this. And the more ways and combinations you play with it will reduce or increase the flexibility in that throw. So all good there. I'll oil up this bearing. Put a little bit of grease onto the main shaft here. Let me just put this right back in. You want to make sure that the shaft seats into that bearing below. Push this down so that you can get to the ridge for that snap ring. Grab the snap ring now. So this has an HT100 drag washer in it, and that looks unused, which is kind of interesting with all the other stuff that we're looking at in this reel. The sand and the like, to have that look unused is pretty interesting. You can, with the HT100 washers, you can go ahead and put some grease on that if you like. Most of the time they'll tell you don't do that, and so I respect that. All right, the spring goes on next. Again, we're just going to oil this bearing. Put that bearing back on. So they're pretty simple in its performance and its design. I like lever wind designs or lever drag designs. Most of the time, this pinion gear is not attached to the pressure plate. In this case, it is, and that's okay. And I just want to get the grease off of the back of this. There's some sand, and that looks like it's infiltrated from what we saw before on the case. Just make sure it's nice and clean. That's what's going to give you the drag. And then the lever drag works by having this compressed against the drag washer, and the compression happens by the way that you bring your lever. It's pushing in or it's pulling out, depending on what the design of the reel is. This goes on reverse, counterclockwise, and that's the surface of this reel. Now, we did notice that there was some debris in the case. We want to continue to clean that. So we'll bring this out. We'll use this looks like salt. Kind of looks like oatmeal. We'll get rid of this. So I've done a series comparing the 4 basic types of fishing reels. Sorry, fly fishermen, I didn't include that. But I looked at spinning reels, I looked at conventional reels, I looked at level wind reels, and I looked at lever drag reels. The lever drag is the only one I haven't put the installment in on yet. Not sure if I'll put that in before I show Dick's reel here, but if I didn't, don't be afraid to go look at the series and learn a little bit about what the common failure points are in these reels. All right, there's 3 screws here. And just take a picture of this if you don't know where you're going with it, because one of these is holding in the idler gear, which is the one I'm going to take out right now. And 2 of these kind of work on the other side of the case with the click mechanism. So you just need to be aware how these go. What we're trying to do here is remove the side plate. Generally, you can leave these screws in once they clear the the tie down for that side plate. And if you don't have to remove them, it gets a little bit easier on the way back in there. There we go. All right, so you can see what's holding it on. So these two screws here are the ones I was fighting to leave in. There are spacers on here, so if you did take all of this apart, know that you do have two spacers there. There's some old grease in here, so we'll do what we did on the other side to make sure we get rid of that. Now there was some grease that was on this, but you don't have to grease this one. We do want to get underneath there and make sure that we attach to the level line guide. All right, we're just gonna, the little washer goes up top on this. Just gonna clean this up because we saw the dirt in here. And during any service, you really want to get rid of as much dirt as you can. Looks like there's just a little accumulation of grease here. Get rid of that. Okay. Then we can add a drop of oil to that, and we can reinstall. So that little washer goes on the top of the idler gear here. When you go to reinstall, you need to line everything up, just like that. Look for your idler gear screw hole. It's down here. So when you go to mesh, just kind of going to do it by eyesight here. Something like that. If you look underneath, you'll be able to see pretty well what's going on with the two holes that have that click ratchet associated with it. Okay, and then I'm going to use a pick to center that little washer screw hole, and I need that little screw. Little screws are my bane, so I'm going to put a little bit of grease onto that. Hopefully that grease will act as a glue in holding that slot. And then we can work our way in. Once we have that centered, I'm going to call that a success. Look at that, huh? And then we can come back in and tighten the other pieces. So we've taken care to clean that side plate. We've taken care to oil it. We don't need to grease that idler gear. That's a petroleum product. And we do want to turn it to make sure that the level line guide is working. While we're doing that, we're going to move it over to the side so that we can service the pawl inside here. Got to be careful with this one. This is a plastic line guide. So if you over tighten on the way back in, you're asking for trouble. You want to take the pawl out of the carrier. This is something it's easily missed. Sometimes folks will see that the pawl is working and leave it alone, but there's always an accumulation on some of these of dirt and debris right in these shoulders here. And that shoulder is actually what's coming in contact with the worm gear. And if you don't clean it off, you're going to find that you'll skip every now and then, or you'll have a little bit of a tight line guide, and it's all avoidable simply by doing what we just did there. Drop of oil will allow it to turn in the case. Go ahead and put this back in. Not an easy task for somebody who has the big hands, but you work with what the good Lord gave you. All right, let's see if we get this working. Probably not. You have to work this. You need to make sure that that pawl gets seated properly. I think I got it that time. You can feel when it's being pinched and when it isn't. Okay, that's working. All right, so we take that. We take our spool here. Spool with the line guide. It's all been worked up. Of course, we got line trapped in there. We always do. I don't like working on reels with line on them, but if it happens that that's what you got, that's what you got. And then spin it to make sure everything's working freely before you do anything significant. There comes a time when you go to be installed in. We're going to grab our case. We're going to put grease onto the pinion gear. So this reel is in nice condition, other than it was had an awful lot of sand and the like in there. But that's kind of something that you just need to pay attention to when you go to service it. So there's two flat sides on this. You need to line that with the case. And those flat sides generally line with where your free spool is. So work for that. There we go. Okay, so I took a little bit of a break to get myself set up for this now. So what we have now is we have the arm for the lever drag. We have a little Teflon washer that goes next. We have set the drag line over to the free spool. Now this is circular. There's nothing grabbing this particular piece of it. We have this out, remember, and I put that collar and screw on there. Hopefully I don't knock it off as I go to do the rest of this. So the art of reel repair requires a little bit of patience and a good sense of humor here. And I don't know, this little one in the middle here with this little collar certainly was engineered for a couple of ha-has along the way. All right, hold on. This is actually your ramp. It's going to increase the tension of the drag, pulling it towards you to increase the tension. So with that over on the left side there, we want to come back in, put that collar on next, and we can screw down the adjuster nut, preset knob. Then me and that small screw are going to have our typical standoff here in terms of trying to get that set in place. Using that glue trick, we'll try this one more time in terms of getting that small screw in. We're good there. Then our little cap goes on top of that. And you'll notice for the preset it tells you to turn to the right for more. That makes sense. It's going to be pulling it out. And then for less, backing it away. All right. That collar goes on next. Checking my parts tray, I only have handle pieces left. That's a good thing. Just going to clean it up. We've done an awful lot on this reel. You want to make sure that you clean the handle and everything while you can. We've cleaned the internals. You might as well try and do what you can on the externals. Just using a scrubby pad and some rod reel cleaner that happens to be Penn, but I use it on more than just Penn reels. All right, that'll go on. I think that we went on this one. Dick, if I have this wrong, you're going to have to correct that. This is where pictures help. If you kind of forgot which way the handle was, whether it was in the leveraged mode or not, then that picture certainly is going to help you. That parts tray is empty. That's always a good sign. And now it's time to just tighten up this nut here, get that nut cap on. And we're going to do the adjustments to allow the tension on the drag. Okay, I think I've got that lined up where that little hold down nut is going to merge with the handle. It did. Got lucky. And let's see. So we should be in free spool. We are. Let's see if we have any. We do. So look at that. We got it on the first shot. Now it's not very deep tension at the moment, right? We're going to have to adjust. But if the handle is turning, it means that the drag washer has engaged. And let's go to that final one. All right. So when you adjust your preset, bring it back to free spool. It's a way that you won't damage the parts. In this case, that little section says go. Turn it clockwise for some more. Make sure that you're in free. Oh yeah, there you go. Got a lot more there. That's solid now. So this reel is has done what it should do. There's your final lockdown on that. This isn't going anywhere. So that's it. That's your Penn International 975 lever drag. Took a while, but you know, sometimes you need to take the time to do it right. So again, if you like this kind of thing, please subscribe. If you do subscribe, please hit the notifications, and you'll see all of the ones that I'm posting. If you have questions on this reel or any reel in particular, leave them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer those if I know the answer, and if not, I'll try and give you some direction. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be serviced and you're not up for doing it yourself, well then please contact me by email on the business card that follows. I'll be happy to provide you with that reel repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.